What you resist the most is usually the thing that's going to give you the most freedom. And this is so incredibly true. If it triggers the crap out of you, if you want to run away from it, if it's something that your soul craves and you secretly write it on your wouldn't it be nice list, but it just feels so heavy. It feels like a big mountain to climb. I'm telling you right now, when you open that door, that is where the freedom lies. Hello, everyone. So I'm really excited to share today's episode with you. I am recording this in Mexico. We've been here for 1 week. This is the first week of a 3-month relocation. My husband and I, our 2 children, and we've also brought somebody else with us, and she has been a part of our family for a while, about 10 years off and on. She's a good friend of one of my oldest son, or our oldest son, and she has supported me in my business, at events, and has grown to be a part of the family. And this is something that I have been wanting to do for a long time. I've been wanting to be a snowbird and leave our home in Canada for the whole winter, or at least a majority of the winter. And for a long, long time, years ago, every winter would actually get a lot of anxiety. And the anxiety came from not understanding how to control my seasonal depression. I think there's a huge correlation with highly, quote unquote, sensitive people, incredibly empathetic people, creative people, big feelers who typically are more prone to anxiety and depression and overwhelm, fatigue, burnout, all those things. But even as a child, I remember this pattern that I had where, I used to remember on a summer day laying in bed and it was beautiful outside and thinking, why am I not happy? Little did I know that my body was burnt out, that my nervous system was living in a survival state, even as a teenager. I had no idea the trauma that was trapped in my body. And, fast forward, life happens. I become a mom, go through some incredibly traumatic experiences. My body forms disease. I recover from disease, heal from disease. And I always had this fear of winter, fear of the darkness. And I know I'm not alone here. Where we live currently, it's very gloomy. It's not like you can't play in the snow. It's not like there's mountains right outside. And every time I talk about, how do you want to feel and reverse engineering how you want to feel, we teach what we need to learn or what we needed to learn, right? The only reason why anyone is an expert in something is because they're studying it. And the reason why we're studying it and practicing it and harnessing our craft is typically because it's something we're passionate about or something we used to struggle with. And over the years, I have had this determination to figure out how to feel alive. And it is a value of mine. It's a North Star of mine. It's something that I take incredibly serious. And a lot of people just stay at surface level. They just hang out at, getting some tips or tricks in place. And I'm always pulling back these layers. And winter was always this time where I was like, I don't want to be here. I could totally feel this I'm such a huge fan of cocooning and going within and doing the inner work, but it didn't feel cozy to me. I can take short spurts of winter, but 3 months, 4 months, 5 months in a winter habitat became depressing for me. And so every year I would write, wouldn't it be nice if? Wouldn't it be nice if? And wouldn't it be nice if we went somewhere for the winter? So this wasn't an impulsive decision. And sometimes I can be a very impulsive person, and that drives my husband nuts. And it's not that I'm impulsive. I'm definitely less impulsive now because I'm more strategic with it. But wanting to come here was intentional. And I want you to know that this is something we prepared for years in advance. And I chipped away slowly at every block or every mountain I needed to climb. I'll tell you a little bit about that story, and then I'll tell you about like current day. So how we're dealing with our kids, behavior and resistance and all the things. So what I did was I always kept this vision on my paper or on my vision board, and I kept writing it down over and over and over again. Like it always stayed there. And of course, when the season comes, that's when, you realize the pain again. That's when you realize, like, we started making decisions to come on this trip 6 months ago when the weather was great at home. So I kept trying to talk myself out of it. And I'm like, oh, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. Well, of course we'll be fine, because I wasn't making the decision in a painful state. And then as the winter, which these decisions were already made, but as the winter crept closer and closer, I could literally feel my behavior changing. And my go-to, I always say my drug of choice is sleep. I know that I am out of alignment or something is wrong when I'm sleeping a lot. And I found myself wanting to sleep more and more and more. I was doom scrolling more, and I was like not happy. And I kept telling my husband, this is not the life I want to live. Why create so much freedom just to be miserable and anxious and feeling like, seasonally depressed? We're going to make this happen. So every winter, especially last winter specifically, I wanted to go away. We did not go away last year. My mom and my son had surgery back to back. So not only was I a caregiver for two people in the same house with like surgery in the same week, it was in the winter. And I remember that feeling. And I made a promise to myself last January, I will never feel this again. And sometimes we need the contrast. We need the contrast to really wake us up. And that was when I made the decision. That was when I got my ass in gear. That's when I stopped letting guilt run the show. So I wrote a list down of everything that was required in order for us to make this happen. I wanted to budget. I wanted to pay cash for everything. I did not want to go into debt for this trip. I didn't want to have anxiety about cash flow for this trip. I didn't want to worry about education. I also wanted to maintain the same lifestyle. And it's not so much the same, household lifestyle, meaning like the home that we were in. It was the food. It was my body. It was exercise. It was quality of life that I was after. So I wrote a wouldn't it be nice list. Everything that we wanted. And then I created a budget, a simple budget of, okay, what would rent look like? What would food look like, right? Like how much are we spending now on food? You can kind of transfer, that money. What other expenses? Are we going to have to rent a car? What do we want to spend on entertainment and all of those things? And I didn't get down to the nitty gritty, but I just got honest about what it was, because I knew if I didn't budget and I was just reactive monetarily instead of proactive, I knew that a location transfer, I also have this weird emotional attachment to my house. So when I do travel, I have this, and it could be because my parents were divorced, but I often want to be at two places at once. And so any other time that we have traveled, because we've done Mexico for a month once before 2 years ago, I could barely last a month. And the reason why is because I want to leave my house to go explore the world, but I miss home. And that was a fear that I had about this time, was if I'm committing to 3 months and I could barely last a month last time, how the hell am I going to last 3 months? And so when I talk about energy management, I mean, I am relentless and ruthless with what is this emotion that is like getting to me. And so last time I was reflecting on it and I was like, why do I not want to be here? Why do I want to be here but not want to be here? And I hear this from a lot of people. They get travel anxiety. And I'm like, I totally get it. Your soul wants to be somewhere, but your body doesn't want to be there, or your nervous system can't handle it. Or like when I would travel, I would get sick all the time. And then what I started noticing is I wasn't getting sick. I was getting sick less and less and less. And it was because my body felt safe. So here's what I discovered. And I'm going to compare this time for 3 months compared to last time when we could barely do it for a month. Okay. So 2 years ago, I was already stressed. I was already stressed because I was in an incredibly stressful period and season of my life where I was hanging on for dear life when it came to parenting. I say my oldest child. Yes, our oldest child, but Logan is only biologically my child. And he was a very hard teenager to parent. And I was either just in recovery and on the tail end of the hardest teen years post-COVID or during COVID, but post-COVID of dealing with him and parenting him and becoming the person needed and required in order for him to thrive. And I guarantee you my physical body was just in a state of fight, flight, freeze. And I couldn't handle it. I also had the cash flow stress. I was still building my business as we're all building business. And, you know, the market shifting is doing all the damn things that it's always doing. I had a rocky team at the time. I didn't have the solid team in place. There was some key players that actually, there wasn't key players. There was key players I needed to put in place. So there was a lot of transition and unknown in my life, but I still took the risk. And I'm so glad I did because it forced me to look at shit. But also, while we were there in that experience, there was a few things that I didn't like. Number one, I had a client pass away while I was on that trip. I hosted a retreat in Mexico that year. And at the exact same time that I was hosting my retreat, I had a client who got a heart transplant, which I knew she was going to get this heart transplant, and she died. She died a week after her heart transplant, and that was very traumatic for me during that time. And again, I also had some like rocky periods, like in seasons and buckets in my life. And so I was doing the tools, I was doing the things, but it was definitely a growth season for me. What that trip gave me was the courage to do emotionally uncomfortable things, the courage to test something, the courage to try. We ended up in a location and an area. I knew somebody in that area, and we really enjoyed it. But I wouldn't have created an exceptional experience this time if we didn't go through that first. And the reason why I tell people to do that is because when you wait for things to be perfect, you are never going to live out your dream because it's about progress, not perfection. From that experience, I realized there was a huge gap that my soul was craving if we were to do a location transfer. And a huge part of that soul craving gap was integrating ourselves into the community and into the culture. So I went back to my wouldn't it be nice list and I asked myself, what is it that your soul is craving? What do you want? And I kept dumping on that list for this relocation specifically. Wouldn't it be nice if we integrated ourselves into the community? Wouldn't it be nice if I could get involved with a local organization or organizations and give back to the community? Wouldn't it be nice if we, met people and went to social events? And it was just like essentially integrating ourselves. Wouldn't it be nice if the kids got involved in local jujitsu or a sport? Wouldn't it be nice if ... Last time at the location that we were in, we got something off. It actually wasn't off Airbnb. We knew somebody. We ended up in a Facebook group. I did FaceTime with somebody. I ended up renting a place. It was beautiful. We had a pool. We could be in walking distance to cafes and shops, but there was some things I didn't like about it. I didn't love the location. It felt like a concrete jungle. There wasn't a lot of nature, and I didn't honestly feel 100% safe. And it was not in a gated community. And, I felt safe. We walked to the gym and all of that, but I could tell my body didn't feel 100% safe, meaning I trusted myself to be around other people, but I could just tell that a part of me was still like incredibly walled and protecting myself. So I didn't love that experience. I always felt like people were like ripping me off or somebody was like watching me. And I was just like, no, I don't love this experience. So I paid attention to all the tiny breadcrumbs. The next thing I did again was I kept talking about it. I kept talking about it with everybody that I knew. And it's funny because a few people came back to me and they're like, you did it, you did it. And I didn't even remember that I was talking about it all the time. But what happens when you talk about the things that you want to do is people start to make connections for you. And this is exactly what happened and what has enhanced this year's experience. So 2 months ago, I was in this group for business, and there was a retreat in Mexico, in Mayan Riviera. Our goal was to come back to Mexico, but we were actually going to stay in Tulum. And I met this woman in the group who actually lives in Mexico in the area of Playa del Carmen area-ish. I knew that she lived in Mexico, but I wasn't paying that close of attention. Anyways, we connected about it. And she's like, hey, are you going to this event? And I said, yes, I'm going to be there. And she goes, well, why don't you like stay at my place or let's connect about it? And I can maybe get my neighbor who's a real estate agent to take you around to some places that you could potentially rent. Here is the thing I want to tell you. I was dead set on staying in Tulum. I was dead set on staying in Tulum because it was my comfort zone. It was what I knew, and it was the connections that I had were in Tulum. And it was just, again, my comfort zone. I got out of my comfort zone. I challenged myself, and I landed in a place for a month, and I was ready to do it again. So I said to myself, Heather, be open to possibility and change. So I extended my trip. I came in a few days before and a few days after of my trip. And what I did is I went around with some real estate agents. And that's a quick tip for you anyways. Don't rent on Airbnb. So I went around with a real estate agent in Tulum a day or two before the event that I was supposed to go to. I looked at a few places and I actually picked one out. It was within our budget. And I was like, okay, I like this. It's near the places. The contacts that I had in Tulum were like, yep, that's a great area. There was a few things I didn't love about it, but I was like, this is Mexico. I'm super flexible. Then I go to the event. I meet this woman that's like, you have to come to Playa del Carmen, blah, 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 blah. So I stay a few days after the event. I go with a real estate agent in Playa del Carmen, and the whole time on the way here, I'm like, nope, this isn't it. This is not the place I want to stay. Absolutely not. My body's like, nope, 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 nope. Driving into Playa, I was like, I don't like this energy. It's not for me. I stay at this woman's house. I go around to these houses, and I'm like, they're okay. But there was something that didn't feel right to me. There was one house that we looked at. I loved it. It was at the top of our budget. And I was like, yes, I want this house. We'll get the house. So the real estate agent, amazing human, by the way, she advocates for this house. And then they're like, nope, we're going to rent it to somebody for 12 months instead of 3 months. So I don't get the house. I want to be mindful again that this house was very North American. And meaning it was brand new. And I was like, oh, this reminds me of home. Like it was nice. But it was in a newer neighborhood and there wasn't a lot of people. And I'm like, isn't it interesting that I want the house that essentially is aligned with what my comfort zone is, but it's not aligned with what my soul is craving. And I want to tell you that again. Isn't it interesting that that was my comfort zone, but it wasn't what my soul was craving? My soul was craving community. My soul was craving literally talking to people on a daily basis. And the place that I liked didn't have a lot of people living in the community yet because it was brand new. It was absolutely gorgeous. It was beautiful, but it was aligned with this North American culture of isolation. That's not why I wanted to come here. I wanted to come here for culture and connection and community. And yet I was going to say yes to something that again felt like individualized homes and not what my soul was craving. So when we didn't get it, I was trusting the universe. I was like, that's okay. So the real estate agent sends me some pictures of other places. They were actually below our budget. She's like, this is a great community. You're going to love it. Right? I look at the pictures and I'm like, this isn't it. I'm not feeling it. These pictures are not selling me on it. I mean, they were not. It was like iPhone photos. And I was going back and forth. And I was like, Heather, just trust the fucking process. So I was like, make a decision for me. What would you suggest based on, you've met me, my family situation. What is this? So she picks a house. She's like, I think this community would be great for you. So I literally just trust. I'm like, sure, awesome, let's do it. Then about a week before we come here, she's like, oh, bad news. There was, sewage problems in that house. I found you another house for the same price, same area, just different location. And I'm like, okay, amazing. Not like super different location, just different. I'm like, okay, no problem. Here's my point. Trust the fucking process and be willing to be uncomfortable and work with people you trust. So this real estate agent, number one, I love working with females. They are my favorite people to work with. This woman is a mother. She knows my kids' ages. She lives here. And it's like she understands the vision of what we were going for. So I just trusted her. But the pictures turned me off. And I was like, I could feel the fear of not wanting to be here. I was like, Heather, you're going to go there and you are not going to want to be there. You're going to want to be back home. You do this every time. You're going to want to run away and be like, I want to go home because your body doesn't want to be there. So I'll tell you what happened when we got here, but this is what I want to tell you at the exact same time. Here I am aware of my own shit, okay? I'm aware of my resistance. I'm aware of my fears. I'm aware of my insecurities. I'm aware of my blocks. I'm aware of the work that I'm going to have to do to set myself up mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially to make this happen. I'm aware of the boundaries that I'm going to have to hold. I'm aware of all the things, but I wasn't prepared for the mountain of resistance that one of my children was going to have. I talked about this a few episodes ago about my son and his resistance to coming. And we kind of got over hurdle number one. And this is what I've learned. As long as my commitment is not to be abusive towards my child, as long as my commitment is to be of highest service to his mental and emotional well-being without doing his own spiritual work for him, meaning not trying to take away his pain for his own aha moments, and I can sit with his emotional discomfort, this is going to be such a growth opportunity for him. So we get here and we've been here for a week. I'm bracing myself because I'm like, I'm going to walk into that place and I'm going to be anxious as fuck. And I'm not going to want to be there. And then I'm going to have to deal with the kids and it's going to be a shit show. Well, we get here and the first feeling I have is relief. And I'm like, the energy feels good. This community feels good. I feel safe. It's clean. And I haven't yet had the thought I want to go home. And that makes me really emotional because I don't think that thought that I've always had every time I left home was because I wanted to actually go home. I think it was the small part of me, the little girl part of me that felt fractured and torn, having two houses with divorced parents. Every time I would leave my mother, I wanted to be with her. And then when I was with my dad, or when I would leave my dad, I would have this big ache in my heart. And then when I was away from my mom, I wanted to be with my mother to protect her. And I think I healed that part of myself through all the work that I do and have done. And I think that's why I feel okay wherever I go. I also started noticing that with other travel that I was doing. Leaving the kids was always very difficult. And it started to get easier and easier. And it wasn't necessarily because my kids were older. It's hard to explain, but it wasn't because my kids were small. It just felt like this ache from being away from my like little ducklings. And I notice it now too with my son being like outside of the house. My oldest son lives across country. And so I think just so much over the last year, especially, but definitely over the last 5 years specifically, of looking at the shadow parts of myself that didn't feel safe, looking at the anxiety, looking at the fears. And I'm not talking about money fears. I mean, that's sure one fear. I'm talking about like general everyday anxiety or like just not feeling at home with yourself. And there are so many situations where I've purposely put myself in ragingly emotionally uncomfortable situations to heal. And so I'm almost certain the amount of peace that I feel right now is a direct reflection of the depth of the darkness that I am willing to go to. There are not many things in my life that I am not willing to feel. I have felt a lot. And so when people go, oh my God, that terrifies me, I'm like, then you haven't looked at it yet. Like, oh, I'm terrified to lose this person. I could never imagine my life without them. I'm like, you know what? Maybe you should start imagining your life without them. Maybe you should start processing now and feeling some of that shit now, because avoiding it isn't helping you. And honestly, avoiding it is actually closing the door on what your soul truly craves. Because if you are not willing to look in the mirror and say, I want joy, I want capacity, I want spaciousness, I want freedom, then you need to feel your restriction. You need to feel your anxiety. You need to feel your fear, and you can't fucking numb it. So everyone wants to know how we relocated for 3 months. And here I am just telling you literally the emotional mountain you have to climb. That son that had the raging resistance is still incredibly resistant to being here. And here's the beauty of that. I'm not making it my fucking problem. I am kind, but it is not my job to entertain my growing children. And I've been thinking a lot about this. So my kids are 13 and 16, and we have a 20-year-old with us as well. And I was reflecting on this the other day, and I'm like, you know what? My kids are detoxing from the toxic North American culture. How uncomfortable they are to literally walk outside and talk to strangers, like meet other kids. There are children outside playing soccer and tennis and just hanging out. And of course, a teenager is awkward and doesn't want to talk to another kid. But it's not my fucking problem. And it's not my responsibility to entertain my children 24/7. And so I'm watching myself go, oh, we need to do this and we need to do that. We need to do that. versus, hey, you want to sit in bed all day and have a pity party for yourself because you're so bored and yet like it's beautiful outside and you just refuse to go sit by the pool or to do something else. Great. You can lay in bed all day, but you're not going to do it on your phone. So I'm going to take your phone. You can have your phone after dinner tonight. You can sleep all day if you want. I'll let you do it for a few days and then we're going to change the routine around, but let your body adjust. And to be radically honest, it may take a week or two or longer for my middle son to emotionally adjust. And if he doesn't, I can't take away part of his spiritual journey. There's a two-parter here. Someone asked me, what did you do for your children's sports activities? And I'm not even going to talk about education. Let's just talk about sports for a second. First of all, my children are not in competitive sports. They did hockey as a Canadian previously before COVID, and then we never followed through with it after. We are not a hockey family. We're entrepreneurs. I do not want to commit every weekend of my life doing travel sports with the kids. That actually feels like death to me. And I would become angry and resentful at my children. And so it's just not aligned for my family specifically. Doesn't mean that it's not going to be aligned for yours. It's just not aligned for my family specifically. We did do jujitsu consistently. And the reality is, the beauty of that is it is a traveling skill, a traveling sport. And we haven't yet, but we will be going to, I don't do jujitsu, but we will be going to do some jujitsu schools and testing that out. It's experiential learning. And guess what? People are going to be uncomfortable. And that is fucking okay. It's okay. What I don't understand is sometimes you have to realize that what appears to be paradise on people's Instagram feeds is growth opportunities. And you see the laptop lifestyle and you see the beach days and you see the sun. But what you don't see is that person's willingness to take a risk, that person's courage to be emotionally uncomfortable and to experience type 2 fun. And type 2 fun, you can Google it, but type 2 fun is in the moment you were like, this is shit. This is shit and it sucks. And then after the experience is over, you're like, that is such a good story to tell. That is such a good time. Oh my gosh, that was so fun. That was so life enhancing for me. And earlier when I talked about our month experience in Mexico 2 years ago and how emotionally uncomfortable I was, in the moment, it was type 2 fun. But when I think back to it, I can tell you all the shitty experiences. I actually had my first panic attack, or one that I don't even recall having a panic attack previously, but I had a very bad panic attack in Mexico. And my husband still talks about it today. And that happened 2 years ago. And I reflect back on that time. And I mean, that's a whole other conversation. I've podcasted about it before. But I think I'm like really fucking proud of that version of myself. That was type 2 fun in the moment. It was not enjoyable 80% of the time. But when I look back, I'm like, what a good fucking story to tell. And me and the kids talk about it all the time. Those little tiny moments that were so fun and enjoyable. But my kids bitched about it a lot. And there was some things that weren't amazing. Like when you have like a teenager who likes to leave in the middle of the night in Mexico, not great. You don't get the best night's sleep. So that was type 2 fun for me as a parent. So fast forward, here we are. Again, I could answer so many of these questions for you. You're welcome to send me a message on Instagram, but write down what your blocks are. And my husband is not super adventurous like me. It takes him such a long time to come around to things like this. And I can say this has been years in the making of getting him comfortable with doing things like this. And there were moments of panic. There were moments of discomfort. from grocery shopping to the next thing we're going to be doing is renting a car, and that's not comfortable for him. And it's just like, lean into the discomfort, lean into the possibility, challenge yourself, challenge each other, whether it's, if you're a single parent, challenge your kids and go on an adventure. Or if you're partnered, challenge your partner and say, listen, let's just grow together. And my husband and I have had moments where he's like said thank you to me. And, there's been moments where I'm like, you got this, you can do this. And I've watched him go from green zone to red zone. And I was like, okay, these are not my emotions to solve. Like, I'll let you process your shit. You'll deal with it. I'm not going to come in and rescue you. And we just fucking move through it. We don't speak Spanish at all. Our children speak French. We're lucky enough that a lot of people here do speak English, but we're also not idiots. Use fucking Google Translate. Learn how to have nonverbal communication skills with people. Learn how to be kind, critical thinking skills, problem solving skills, getting emotionally uncomfortable situations and figuring out together. Like, do you know what it's like to go somewhere where you don't speak the language of somebody else and you're by yourself? You are absolutely by yourself. And you're like, I have to get from point A to point B. I wanted to go and get my eyelashes done because I'm here for 3 months. Eyelashes bring me fucking joy, makes me feel good. I'm on Zoom all the time. And I'm asking myself, how do I want to feel? I'm not letting guilt stop me from anything. I asked for a referral. I got a referral. I was so uncomfortable. Like, is this person going to be legit? Are they going to put like tar on my eyelashes? Then I go to find them. I'm lost. I'm this, I'm that. Listen, Google Translate, talk to people, read their energy. You know how many amazing, kind humans there are out there? I said, I'm lost. I'm looking for this location. I can't find it. Someone's like, sorry, can't help you. I don't speak English. And then someone else is like, you know what? Let me help you. I had this one person, it was like, I think you go straight and then turn right. And again, they're saying this in Spanish and we're using Google Translate together. And then I'm walking down the street. That person comes running after me and they're like, I told you the wrong directions. I'm sorry. I went back and I looked at, my phone and You actually have to go 3 blocks this way. And I was like, thank you. Thank you. There are so many kind people out there in the world, and we are living in fucking fear. I can tell you right now, of course I could go to nooks and crannies and neighborhoods where I feel incredibly unsafe, and I could do that in my own backyard. But what are you filling your mind with? Like, you need physical strategy to make shit happen. But if you're not giving yourself permission to dream, nothing's going to happen. And sure, maybe it won't happen next week. Maybe it won't happen next year. But if you're persistent and you keep saying, okay, what's the next thing blocking me? Great. How can I solve that problem? Great. Make a plan and follow through with the plan. The other thing I want to say is having somebody, an expat. And so if you're not familiar with what an expat is an expatriate. So Americans, Canadians, internationals, Europeans, it's when somebody from a different country moves to a different country. So there's a lot of expats that live here, which is interesting to me that they call them expats. They're not running away from their country per se. They're doing a location transfer versus a refugee or an immigrant. Do not quote me on this, but I find it, I'm going to do research on this after as to why someone is considered an expat versus an immigrant. I find that incredibly interesting. If you know why that is, send me an Instagram message because I've never heard somebody use the term expat in Canada before. We call them immigrants or refugees. And I'm like, why wouldn't you call a Canadian that came to Mexico an immigrant? Like if they decide to live here full time. I'm going to look that up because that seems a little fishy to me. Anywho, a lot of expat communities, you can find them online. So just Google it. Expat communities in whatever country you want. There's also a program, I've never used it, but I've had friends and colleagues. It's called Boundless Life. Go check it out. They do Portugal. They do all these other communities and countries. where you can go there for like just 4 weeks, and they have built-in community. And then they really tailor to a lot of like remote families, like people who can work remotely. And then they do education for your children. So my children are too old for that program. So if your kids are like under 10, maybe 12, it's perfect. So if you have really small kids, it's a really good program for smaller children. The one thing I want to say about remote work. So I always tell people I did a location transfer. This is not a vacation. Vacations are when you are completely off the grid, when you are, I can't even tell you the last time I took a vacation. I'm using air quotes. My point is I'm always working. I'm literally probably working 7 days a week on something. And I'm not like always in meetings and things like that, but my brain is always thinking, how can I amplify? How can I build? How can I create? How can I modify? I take a lot of breaks. I integrate rest in my life, but I'm not on quote unquote vacation. Sometimes I am, but to be honest, I've created such time flexibility and time freedom in my life that I can grow revenue and I can still buy back my time and energy and feel deeply connected in my relationship. So it's more of a personality and a lifestyle than that. But if you are not yet doing remote work, then, maybe you get a remote job. Maybe you become a consultant and work remotely. Maybe you go on a sick leave or a leave of absence from work or pay time off or whatever it is, and just test it. Test it, do new experiences, try something different. You could go on Airbnb and find a place, but I do like expat communities. I do also like connecting with real estate agents in the country of choice because they often have clients that are trying to sell their homes that are willing to rent them out for longer term, whether it's a month, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, and you can get heavily discounted places because of that. And so for what we paid for our place, that probably, for the rent that we paid here, that would have cost us, we would have paid that for like a week for our family. So we were in Florida for Christmas last year for a week visiting my dad. And what we paid for our hotel or the resort that we stayed at for 1 week, that was more. It was $1,000 more, $1,500 more for 1 week than what we've paid here for a month. So it's way more affordable. And if you just start saving up, you think, okay, well, we have to eat food at home, so we can use that money here. There's so many ways you can save money. At home, we have 2 vehicles. We changed our insurance policy on that while we're gone for 3 months. So just like all these subscriptions and memberships that you have at home, probably even extracurricular activities. And you're like, holy shit, for the amount of money that we're saving, we can just reallocate it for the 3 months and go somewhere else. And honestly, it's not even that you're saving money. It's just that it's not a lot of money out of your pocket. There's just so many things that I could say, but really it's the biggest objection is going to be fear of uncertainty. You can use AI to search anything these days. And I used AI a lot to find Facebook groups. I used AI a lot for websites. And all you need is a few in-country people to get you started. Think about communities. I looked up workout communities. You connect to one person, they connect you to somebody else. It's just amazing. Also looking for co-working spaces, entrepreneur hubs, groups. Fitness is amazing. Amazing. And then you create your own community. You do a service share. You be of highest service to other people. When you are either at a resort or you are anywhere, you just talk to one person and say, do you have one connection for me? And that person, at an Airbnb, you could go to in country, stay at an Airbnb for a week, and then start connecting with people at coffee shops and say, do you know anyone that would rent us a place for a month or 2 months or 3 months? And you could get, it's like just get there and then continue to build. So I think this trip so far has been probably way more emotionally comfortable for me. I started working right away. I don't feel sick or run down, knock on wood, because I know how to create a vision and I know how to execute on a vision. And, we were proactive about this, not reactive. And there were so many fears of uncertainty until we got here and we got integrated. Another thing is just giving ourselves time to integrate into the country and integrate into the experience. And I want to talk about education for a second. So every time I bring this up, people say, what are you doing with the kids? What are you doing with the kids and education? And I used to ask these questions too. I think COVID really cracked me open to this. And my children go to a regular school, and they currently go to a regular school. They have their hims and haws about it. They socialize, they do all of the things. And I think sometimes the challenge is, we want to solve a lot of these problems for our kids. And I thought this was going to be a huge hurdle. And so far, it actually has been slight hurdle, but I'm not making it that big of a deal. So the first thing we did was we made appointments with the kids' school. And we have two schools that they go to. One kid goes to one, the other goes to another. One's in high school, one's in grade school. We don't have junior high here. But here's the thing. I didn't ask the school for permission. I told them what we were doing. I'm going to say it again. I didn't ask the school for permission. I told them what we were doing. They don't own my children. They don't own what they do, where they invest their time or energy. They don't own my life, just like corporate. It's not going to stop me. And I had a lot of fear. I was like, this is going to be a big hurdle. I'm going to have to argue with them. I made up all these stories in my mind. They had no issue. Now, I understand that is not always going to be the case for somebody, but when there's a will, there is a way. When there is a will, there is a way. And if you pre-plan, it should be a non-issue. So we shifted things around. It made the kids a little uncomfortable, and we pivoted. We're teaching flexibility. We're teaching communication, all these life skills that you can only acquire through experiences. What I will say is now that we are here, we have a schedule, a daily schedule. Wake up. I want you fed, and I want you learning something from 10 a.m. to noon. Then you're going to eat at noon. Then you're going to go outside. After you come in at dinner time, then you can go back on electronics. It hasn't played out like that perfectly, but I also have enough emotional regulation not to get angry and frustrated and pissed off. That has taken me years and years and years of work to do. And to be honest, if I was the old version of myself, I probably would have yelled and screamed at my kids a million times by now. And I haven't raised my voice once. I've gotten a little annoyed and frustrated with my middle son, but I haven't let him suck the life out of me. I was like, okay, you're miserable. That's on you, boo. So they have to learn something for 2 hours in the morning. I don't care if it is Spanish, online Spanish course, something for their school. If they're reading an additional book or learning a new skill, they have to commit to something. So I did test projects. I tried to create a test project for both of them. My middle one has resistance to it still because he essentially thinks I'm horrible right now, which is totally fine. And the younger one is just starting to get into the routine. So I gave myself mentally a week, and I'm recording this at the end of our last week. We will be here for a week tomorrow. So essentially this was integration week, and then next week it's going to be more structured. My boundaries are going to get a little more assertive. I will probably have an alarm clock for them to get started. I'll be like, this is what needs to happen. This is the consequence if it doesn't happen. Because what I see happening is that whole summer schedule shit. And then it's like the boundaries are not black and white. And then slowly, anger and resentment picks up. So I'm very aware that if I don't crack down, shit's going to hit the fan. That's it, guys. I could go on and on and on, but all I can tell you is this. Sometimes your environment is the thing that's actually slowly killing you. And you don't need to know why, but you need to remove yourself and the evidence will appear. And I cannot tell you how much my soul has returned to life having sun. I feel like I'm a little lizard. I haven't even been in the ocean yet. I haven't been to the beach yet. I've sat around the pool and I've still worked a lot and we've worked out. We're getting on our food routine. I haven't skipped a beat and I've slept and, you know, I'm just telling myself, I'm not here to be a fucking hero. My job is already done. The hurdle was getting here and I don't need to visit every part of Mexico. I don't need to ever entertain my children every weekend. I don't need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars busying myself. The goal here is for my soul to be rejuvenated. And sometimes, when our soul needs to be rejuvenated, we need to have a breakdown to a breakthrough. So this is your invitation to do something emotionally uncomfortable, to give yourself permission to want what you want, to use your voice and have those uncomfortable conversations with your partner. Or if that's not going to work, create a plan and ask yourself, what do I need to feel more alive and aligned? And what do I need? And if I can't do a 3-month or 6-month location transfer, what is the feeling that I am after? Is it freedom? Is it lightness? Is it ease? And how can I do that now with $0? How can I realign my life with $0? If I was at home right now and I could not leave and I was, falling into seasonal depression, and I asked myself, how do you want to feel? I want to feel alive and I want to feel energized. I would be making walking dates with friends. I would be asking myself, are there coffee shops you can go to? Are there events that are going on that you could physically put on the calendar even though you won't want to leave the house? Are there any sauna places you could go to on a weekly basis? Are there co-working places you can go to? What can you do? Can you get a spray tan? Can you clean up your diet? Can you get a gym buddy? Can you put your fucking phone away? What is it that your soul is craving, and what are you willing to do to get emotionally uncomfortable? I hope this was helpful. As always, I'm just here to practice what I preach and to lead and show you there is another way.